Keep an eye out for the golden star during the video. If you spot it, comment the time you saw it, and you'll get a shout out in our next video. Happy hunting! Surviving the collapse. A post-apocalyptic battle for hope and humanity. The air was still, an eerie calm that belied the chaos about to unfold. Alex Carter stood on the rooftop of his apartment building, his eyes fixed on the horizon. The sun, usually a comforting presence, now blazed with an unnatural intensity. A wave of unease swept over him as he watched the sky. The news had been full of warnings about the solar flare, but no one had expected it to be this severe. Alex's phone buzzed incessantly with emergency alerts. Massive solar storm expected to disrupt all electronic communications, they read. He glanced at his phone, seeing Emily's last text. "Stay safe, Alex. Love you." He tried to call her, but the network was already down. Panic began to set in. Just as he was about to head downstairs, a blinding flash illuminated the sky, turning day into an unbearable glare. Alex shielded his eyes, feeling the heat on his skin. The solar flare hit with a force that shook the ground beneath him. He stumbled, gripping the railing to steady himself. Within moments, the city's power grid failed, plunging the metropolis into darkness. "Oh God!" Alex muttered, realizing the magnitude of the disaster. He sprinted down the stairs, his heart pounding in his chest. The building's emergency lights flickered weakly, casting long, ghostly shadows on the walls. As he reached the lobby, he saw his neighbors in a state of hysteria, some screaming, others frozen in shock. "Emily!" he shouted, pushing through the crowd. "Has anyone seen Emily?" But his voice was lost in the cacophony. He had to get to her apartment, a few blocks away, but the streets were already descending into chaos. He burst out of the building and was met with a scene from a nightmare. Cars were stalled in the middle of the road, their drivers either abandoning them or futilely trying to restart them. People ran in all directions, some looting stores, others searching for loved ones. Fires had already broken out in several buildings, adding a sinister glow to the darkened cityscape. Alex weaved through the pandemonium, his mind racing. "I have to find her. She must be terrified," he thought, dodging a group of looters smashing a storefront window. The sound of breaking glass and distant sirens filled the air, creating a symphony of chaos. He reached Emily's building, only to find the entrance blocked by debris from a collapsed facade. He scrambled over the rubble, ignoring the cuts and bruises forming on his arms and legs. "Emily! Emily, are you in there?" he yelled, his voice cracking with desperation. The building groaned ominously, and Alex knew he didn't have much time. He forced his way through the debris, kicking down a door that had jammed shut. The hallway was filled with dust and smoke, making it hard to see or breathe. He pressed on, using the faint light from his phone to guide him. He found Emily's apartment door ajar, swinging on its hinges. He pushed it open, calling her name again. The apartment was a mess, furniture overturned and belongings scattered everywhere. He searched each room frantically, hoping against hope that she was hiding somewhere safe. "Alex?" A weak voice called from the bedroom. He rushed in to find Emily huddled in the corner, her eyes wide with fear. Relief washed over him, but it was short-lived as the building shuddered once more. "We need to get out of here now," Alex said, pulling her to her feet. Emily nodded, clutching a small backpack to her chest. They made their way back through the rubble-strewn hallway, each step a fight against the instability of the building. As they emerged into the chaos outside, Alex knew their ordeal was far from over. The city was falling apart around them, and survival meant finding a safe place and avoiding the lawlessness that was quickly taking over. But for now, they had each other, and that was enough to keep moving forward. "Stay close to me," Alex said, gripping Emily's hand tightly. They disappeared into the night, determined to find safety in a world that had suddenly become hostile and unforgiving. The real battle for survival had just begun. The night swallowed them as Alex and Emily navigated the chaotic streets. The city, once a beacon of civilization, now resembled a war zone. Fires burned unchecked, casting an eerie glow that illuminated the desperation etched on every face they passed. The air was thick with smoke and the distant sound of sirens, mingling with the cries of the lost and the frantic shouts of those clinging to the remnants of order. Alex kept a firm grip on Emily's hand, pulling her along as they dodged through the masses. "We need to find a safe place," he thought, scanning for any sign of shelter. They passed by a group of people ransacking a convenience store, fighting over the last few supplies. The violence and chaos were escalating, and Alex knew they had to move quickly. "We can't stay here," Alex said, more to himself than to Emily. He spotted an alleyway that looked relatively untouched and led her into its shadowed depths. The sounds of the city dulled slightly, providing a brief respite from the madness. They paused to catch their breath, leaning against the cold brick wall. "Alex, what's happening? Why is everything falling apart?" Emily's voice trembled, fear evident in her wide eyes. Alex took a deep breath, trying to steady his racing thoughts. The solar flare knocked out everything. Power, communications, it's all gone. People are scared and desperate. We need to find somewhere safe until things calm down. A sudden crash echoed from the mouth of the alley, followed by the sound of heavy footsteps. Alex tensed, pushing Emily behind him. A group of men appeared, their eyes wild with adrenaline. They had the look of scavengers, desperate and dangerous. "Hey, look what we have here," the leader sneered, stepping forward. "You two lost? We can help you for a price." Alex tightened his grip on the makeshift weapon he had picked up, a length of metal pipe. "We don't want any trouble. Just let us pass." The leader laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Trouble's already found you, pal. Hand over anything valuable, and we might let you walk away." Emily clutched Alex's arm, her fear palpable. Alex's mind raced. He knew they couldn't outrun these men, and fighting was a last resort. "I need to think of something fast," he thought, eyes darting around for any advantage. Before he could react, one of the men lunged. Alex swung the pipe, connecting with a sickening thud. The attacker fell back, but the others surged forward. Chaos erupted in the narrow alley as Alex fought to protect Emily. The noise and violence blurred into a frantic struggle for survival. Alex's heart pounded as he fended off blow after blow. He saw an opening and shouted to Emily, "Run! Go now!" Emily hesitated, but Alex's fierce gaze propelled her into motion. She darted past the attackers, her small frame slipping through the chaos. Fueled by adrenaline, Alex swung the pipe again, creating just enough space to break free. He dashed after Emily, the sounds of pursuit echoing behind him. They burst from the alley and into the open street, their lungs burning with exertion. "There!" Alex pointed to an abandoned bus, its doors hanging open. They sprinted towards it, diving inside and slamming the door shut. The temporary barrier gave them a moment to catch their breath. "Are you okay?" Alex asked, his voice hoarse. Emily nodded, tears streaming down her face. "What are we going to do?" Alex peered out the window, watching the scavengers search the area. "We need to keep moving. Find somewhere they can't reach us." They crept through the bus, exiting through the back door and into another alley. This one was quieter, less chaotic. They moved quickly, avoiding any loud noises or exposed areas. As they made their way through the labyrinth of backstreets, Alex's thoughts churned with plans and contingencies. "Maybe we can find an old shelter or a secure building," he considered, trying to piece together a plan. The city was vast, and somewhere there had to be a safe haven. After what felt like hours of relentless movement, they stumbled upon an old subway entrance. The gate was partially open, and it looked like it hadn't been disturbed yet. Alex led Emily down the steps, the darkness enveloping them. It was quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos above. They found a small maintenance room and barricaded the door. Alex set up a small lantern, its weak light casting long shadows on the walls. He sat down heavily, the weight of the night's events crashing down on him. "We'll rest here for now," he said, trying to sound reassuring. "Tomorrow we'll figure out our next move." Emily curled up beside him, her small frame shaking with silent sobs. Alex wrapped an arm around her, offering what comfort he could. As exhaustion pulled at his consciousness, he knew they had survived the first night. But the real challenge lay ahead, surviving in a world that had lost its mind. "Stay strong, Emily," he thought, looking at her sleeping form. "We'll get through this. Together." Morning arrived with a muted glow, filtered through the grime-covered windows of the old subway station. Alex stirred, his body aching from the previous day's ordeal. He glanced at Emily, still curled up beside him, her sleep restless. The quiet of the underground was deceptive, a fragile bubble against the storm above. Alex stood and stretched, his mind already turning to their next move. They couldn't stay here long. Supplies would run out, and the city was too dangerous. "We need a plan," he thought, pacing the small room. The distant echoes of the city filtered down to them, a constant reminder of the chaos they had escaped. Emily woke with a start, her eyes darting around the room before landing on Alex. "Are we safe here?" she asked, her voice a whisper. "For now," Alex replied, kneeling beside her. "But we need to keep moving. There's a group led by someone named Marcus Stone. I've heard they offer protection, but they're not exactly known for their kindness." Emily's eyes widened. "Do we have to go there?" Alex hesitated. "It's a risk, but they might have resources we need. And information. They could know where other survivors are, maybe even someone who's seen Mom and Dad." Emily nodded slowly, understanding the gravity of their situation. They packed what little they had and slipped out of the subway, blending into the shadows of the early morning light. The city was no less chaotic in the dawn. Smoke still rose from smoldering buildings, and the streets were littered with debris and the remnants of skirmishes. Alex led Emily through back alleys and side streets, avoiding the main roads where danger was more likely to lurk. Hours passed, and their progress was slow but steady. As they neared the outskirts of the city, the presence of Marcus's enforcers became more apparent. Men in makeshift uniforms patrolled the area, their expressions hard and unyielding. Alex knew they were getting close. "Remember, let me do the talking," Alex whispered to Emily. She nodded, gripping his hand tightly. They approached a checkpoint, a barricade manned by several of Marcus's men. Alex took a deep breath and stepped forward. "We're looking for Marcus Stone. We need protection," he said, his voice steady. The guard eyed them suspiciously. "Why should we trust you? You could be spies or worse." "We're just trying to survive," Alex replied, meeting the guard's gaze. "We have nothing to offer but our skills and our loyalty." The guard hesitated, then nodded. "Wait here." He disappeared into a nearby building, leaving Alex and Emily to wait in tense silence. Minutes later, the guard returned with a tall, imposing man, Marcus Stone. His presence was commanding, his eyes sharp and calculating. He looked them over, assessing their worth in a single glance. "You seek protection," Marcus said, his voice deep and resonant. "What can you offer in return?" Alex squared his shoulders. "I'm an engineer. I can help with rebuilding, fixing things. My sister, she's a quick learner. We'll do whatever it takes." Marcus considered this, then nodded slowly. "Very well. But know this, loyalty is everything here. Betray us and there will be consequences. Understand?" Alex nodded. "We understand." Marcus turned to one of his men. "Take them to the camp. See that they're put to work." He looked back at Alex and Emily. "Welcome to your new home." As they followed the guard, Alex couldn't help but feel a mix of relief and apprehension. They had found a temporary refuge, but the cost of survival here was high. He glanced at Emily, her face set with determination. "We'll get through this," he thought, one step at a time. The camp was a sprawling complex of makeshift shelters and fortified structures. It bustled with activity, people moving with purpose under the watchful eyes of Marcus's enforcers. Alex and Emily were led to a small, bare tent at the edge of the camp. "This will be your quarters," the guard said curtly. "You'll start work tomorrow. Stay out of trouble." Alex nodded, watching as the guard walked away. He turned to Emily, who was already exploring their new space. "We've made it this far," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "We'll figure out the rest together." Emily nodded, her resolve unwavering. "We have to. We don't have a choice." As night fell, the camp settled into an uneasy silence. Alex lay awake, his mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. They had found a place to rest, but at what cost? The real challenge was just beginning, and he knew that surviving in Marcus's world would test them in ways they had never imagined. "Stay strong, Emily," he thought, looking over at her sleeping form. "We'll get through this. Together." Morning broke with a harsh light, filtering through the thin fabric of the tent. Alex woke to the sounds of the camp stirring to life, people moving about, orders being shouted, the clatter of tools and weapons. He sat up and looked at Emily, who was already awake and watching the activity outside with wary eyes. "We need to blend in," Alex said quietly. "Do what they ask, stay out of trouble, and keep our ears open. If there's any word of Mom and Dad, we need to hear it." Emily nodded, determination etched on her face. "I'll be careful." A knock on the tent pole startled them. A young man, barely older than Alex, poked his head inside. "You're up. Good. Marcus wants you to report to the workshop," he said, pointing to Alex. "You," he said to Emily, "will help in the kitchen. Follow me." Alex and Emily exchanged a brief, reassuring glance before stepping outside. The camp was bustling, every person with a task, a purpose. Alex followed the young man to a large, makeshift building at the center of the camp. Inside, the workshop was a hive of activity, filled with scavenged electronics, tools, and half-finished projects. "New guy?" a burly man with a thick beard asked, looking up from his workbench. "Yeah, Alex," he replied, stepping forward. "Good. We need all the hands we can get. Name's Greg. Welcome to the shop." Greg handed Alex a toolbox. "Start by sorting these parts. We've got a lot to fix." Alex nodded and got to work, his hands moving methodically as his mind raced. "This place is organized, efficient," he thought, sorting through wires and circuit boards. "But Marcus's grip on these people is strong. I need to learn as much as I can." Meanwhile, Emily was led to the camp's makeshift kitchen, a large tent filled with basic cooking equipment and a handful of women and children preparing meals. An older woman with a stern face greeted her. "Name?" she asked, not looking up from chopping vegetables. "Emily," she replied, stepping forward. "Good.
I'm Marta."
"You'll help with the food prep. Stick close and don't wander off." Emily nodded and took her place beside Martha, her hands quickly learning the rhythm of chopping and mixing. As she worked, she listened to the conversations around her, hoping to catch any news. The day passed in a blur of activity. Alex focused on his tasks, using the work as a way to blend in and observe. He noticed the hierarchy, the way people moved with both fear and respect for Marcus's enforcers. He also saw the cracks, the hushed conversations, the stolen glances that spoke of dissatisfaction and fear. During a break, Greg sat down beside Alex, wiping sweat from his brow. "So, what's your story?" he asked, handing Alex a canteen. Alex took a sip, grateful for the brief respite. "Just trying to survive," he said. "Heard Marcus's group was the best bet for staying alive." Greg nodded. "It is for now, but it's not easy. Marcus runs a tight ship. You cross him, you pay." Alex looked around, lowering his voice. "And you? You seem like you've been here a while." Greg shrugged. "Long enough. Seen good people come and go. Some didn't make it. Just keep your head down, do your work, and you might get by." Alex's mind churned. There has to be more to this, he thought. People here are scared, but they're also desperate for change. As night fell, Alex reunited with Emily. They shared a simple meal in their tent, speaking in hushed tones. "Anything?" Alex asked, his eyes searching Emily's face. "Just rumors," she said, shaking her head. "People are scared. Some are talking about leaving, but no one knows where to go." Alex sighed, feeling the weight of their situation. "We'll figure it out. There has to be a way." The following days fell into a routine. Alex worked in the workshop, fixing radios and other equipment, while Emily helped in the kitchen. They made it a point to blend in, learning what they could about the camp and its inhabitants. One evening, as Alex was finishing up for the day, Greg approached him with a furtive look. "Come with me," he said, nodding towards the back of the workshop. Curious and cautious, Alex followed. Greg led him to a small, hidden room. Inside were a few other camp members, their faces tense but resolute. "We're planning something," Greg said, closing the door behind them. "We've had enough of Marcus's rule. We want to leave, start fresh somewhere else. We could use someone with your skills." Alex's heart raced. This was the opportunity he had been looking for. "I'm in," he said without hesitation. "But I need to bring my sister." Greg nodded. "Of course. We'll need everyone we can get." They spent the next hour discussing plans, strategies, and risks. The escape wouldn't be easy. Marcus's enforcers were vigilant, and the surrounding area was treacherous. But for the first time since the solar flare, Alex felt a glimmer of hope. Back in their tent, Alex shared the news with Emily. Her eyes widened with a mix of fear and excitement. "Are you sure it's safe?" she asked. "No," Alex admitted. "But staying here isn't safe either. We need to take the chance. Together." Emily nodded, her resolve strengthening. "Then let's do it." As they prepared for what lay ahead, Alex felt a newfound determination. They had allies now, a plan, and a goal. The road to freedom would be fraught with danger, but they were ready to face it head-on. "We'll get through this," Alex thought, looking at Emily with a fierce sense of protectiveness. "We'll make it to a better place. Together." Dawn broke with a dull light, casting long shadows over the camp as it came to life. Alex's heart beat with a mix of anxiety and determination. Today would be crucial. He and Emily had a plan, but they needed to be cautious. Any misstep could mean the end for them both. As he made his way to the workshop, Alex's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. He had to act normal, keep his head down, and find the right moment to gather the final pieces of their escape plan. The workshop was already buzzing with activity. Greg nodded at him as he entered, a silent acknowledgement of the task ahead. "Morning," Greg said, handing Alex a toolbox. "We've got a lot to get through today. Stay sharp." Alex nodded, diving into the work. His hands moved with practiced ease, but his mind was on the hidden room and the whispered plans. He glanced around, ensuring no one was watching too closely. The tension in the camp was palpable. Everyone seemed on edge. During a break, Alex found a moment to speak with Greg. "Everything ready?" he asked in a low voice. Greg nodded. "Tonight, we'll move after the evening patrols. Be ready." Alex's heart pounded. "We will be." The day dragged on, each hour feeling like an eternity. Emily, meanwhile, worked in the kitchen, her nerves hidden behind a mask of calm. She had her own part to play, ensuring they could slip away unnoticed. As evening approached, Alex and Emily regrouped at their tent. They shared a silent meal, both aware of the enormity of what they were about to do. "Stay close to me," Alex said quietly. "Once we're out, we don't stop until we're clear." Emily nodded, her resolve unwavering. "I'm ready." The camp settled into its usual nighttime routine. Guards patrolled the perimeter, their movements predictable. Alex and Emily waited for the signal, every nerve on edge. Finally, Greg appeared, a shadow in the dim light. "It's time," he whispered. "Follow me." They moved silently through the camp, sticking to the shadows. Alex held Emily's hand, guiding her with firm but gentle pressure. They reached the hidden room, where a handful of others were already waiting. The tension was thick, but there was also a sense of hope. "Everyone ready?" Greg asked, his voice barely a whisper. Nods all around. Alex squeezed Emily's hand, drawing strength from her presence. "Let's move," Greg said, leading them out. The group slipped through the camp, avoiding the patrols with practiced ease. They reached the perimeter, where a small gap in the fence had been prepared. One by one, they slipped through, hearts racing. They moved quickly, the dark forest swallowing them as they left the camp behind. Alex's mind raced with every step. We're really doing this, he thought, adrenaline fueling his movements. The path was treacherous, but they pressed on, driven by the promise of freedom. Suddenly, a shout rang out behind them. Stop! Intruders! Chaos erupted. Alex grabbed Emily's hand, pulling her into a sprint. Run! Don't look back! The forest became a blur as they dashed through the underbrush. Gunshots cracked in the night, and Alex felt the rush of air as bullets whizzed past them. He pushed Emily ahead, using his body to shield her. Greg and the others scattered, drawing the guards' attention. Alex and Emily kept running, their breaths ragged. They reached a small creek and plunged into the water, using it to mask their trail. The icy water bit into their skin, but they pushed on, desperate to put as much distance as possible between them and the camp. After what felt like hours, they finally stopped, collapsing on the far bank. Alex pulled Emily close, both of them panting with exhaustion and relief. The sounds of pursuit had faded, leaving only the quiet of the night. We did it, Emily whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and excitement. Alex nodded, his heart still racing. We're not safe yet, but we're free. We need to keep moving. They rose and continued their journey, each step taking them further from the camp and closer to an uncertain but hopeful future. The forest closed in around them, offering a temporary refuge as they forged ahead into the unknown. For the first time in days, Alex allowed himself a small smile. They had taken the first step toward a new beginning. The path ahead would be long and fraught with danger, but they were ready to face it. Together, the forest enveloped them in a cocoon of relative safety, the dense canopy above filtering the weak morning light. Alex and Emily pressed forward, their movements cautious yet determined. The sense of freedom was intoxicating, but Alex knew they couldn't afford to let their guard down. The danger wasn't just behind them, it was all around. As they trekked deeper into the woods, the adrenaline from their escape began to wear off, replaced by the gnawing need for food and water. They stopped by a small stream to refill their canteens and take a short rest. Alex scanned the surroundings, his mind constantly on alert. We need to find shelter, he said, keeping his voice low. Somewhere we can lay low for a while. Emily nodded, her eyes reflecting a mix of fatigue and determination. I saw a cabin on a map back in the camp. It should be a few miles north of here. Alex's mind raced with possibilities. A secluded cabin could provide the temporary refuge they needed. Let's move. Stay close. The journey was grueling. Every snap of a twig and rustle of leaves set Alex's nerves on edge. They walked for hours, the forest a seemingly endless maze. Just as Alex began to doubt the existence of the cabin, they stumbled upon it. A small, weather-beaten structure hidden among the trees. Let's hope no one's home, Alex muttered, approaching the cabin cautiously. He peered through the windows and, seeing no signs of recent habitation, pushed the door open with a creak. Inside, the cabin was a relic of a time before the collapse. Dusty furniture, an old wood stove, and a few canned goods were all that remained. Alex set to work securing the door and windows while Emily explored the small space. We can make this work, Alex thought, a sense of relief washing over him. At least for now. They settled in, the cabin offering a rare moment of peace. As night fell, Alex lit a small fire in the stove, the warmth a welcome comfort. They shared a meal of scavenged food, the meager rations tasting like a feast. Do you think they're still looking for us? Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex nodded. Probably, but we have to stay focused. We need to gather supplies, plan our next move, and figure out what Marcus is really up to. There's more going on than just survival. Emily looked at him, her eyes searching. What do you mean? I overheard some things back at the camp, Alex said, leaning forward. Marcus isn't just trying to survive. He's building something, consolidating power. There are rumors of experiments, people disappearing. We need to find out what's happening and warn others. Emily shuddered. How do we do that? We start by finding those who escaped with us. Greg mentioned a rendezvous point if we got separated. We need to regroup and share what we know. The next morning, they set out to find the others. Following Greg's instructions, they moved cautiously, avoiding main paths and keeping to the dense underbrush. The forest was alive with sounds, every rustle and call a reminder of their vulnerability. By midday, they reached the designated meeting spot, a small clearing marked by a cluster of ancient oak trees. Greg and a few others were already there, their faces lighting up with relief at the sight of Alex and Emily. "Glad you made it," Greg said, clapping Alex on the back. "We've been worried." "Same here," Alex replied. "What's the plan?" Greg's face grew serious. "We've gathered some intel. Marcus is working on something big, a facility hidden deep in the woods. We need to find it and expose whatever he's doing." "Agreed," Alex said, his resolve hardening. "But we need to be careful. We can't just walk in there." The group huddled together, sharing maps and information. They plotted a course to the suspected location of Marcus's secret facility, a place whispered about in hushed tones among the camp's inhabitants. The risks were enormous, but so were the stakes. As they prepared to move out, Alex felt a mix of fear and determination. The path ahead was uncertain and fraught with danger, but they had no choice. They had to uncover the truth about Marcus and his plans. Their survival and the future of countless others depended on it. With their resolve steeled and their plans set, Alex and Emily joined their new allies, disappearing once more into the depths of the forest. The journey was just beginning, and they were ready to face whatever lay ahead. Together, the forest seemed to close in around them as Alex and Emily pressed forward with their new allies. The underbrush was thick, the ground uneven, but they moved with purpose. The sense of urgency was palpable. Every step brought them closer to uncovering Marcus's dark secrets. Greg led the way, his familiarity with the terrain evident in his confident strides. Alex kept Emily close, his eyes darting around, constantly scanning for threats. They navigated through the dense foliage, avoiding open areas where they might be spotted. After hours of grueling travel, they reached a secluded spot where the forest canopy opened up slightly, allowing a bit more light to filter through. Greg called for a halt, and the group gathered around a large, flat rock that served as an impromptu table for their maps and plans. "All right, listen up," Greg began, his voice low but commanding. "The facility is about 5 miles east of here. It's heavily guarded, so we need to be smart about this. We'll split into 2 teams. One will create a diversion, draw the guards away. The other will infiltrate the facility and gather evidence. Alex, you're with me on the infiltration team." Alex nodded, his mind already racing with strategies. "What kind of diversion are we talking about?" Greg grinned, a fierce glint in his eye. "We're going to give them a fireworks show they won't forget. We've got some supplies, makeshift explosives, noisemakers. It'll be risky, but it should draw enough attention." The group spent the next hour preparing. Alex helped rig the explosives, his engineering skills proving invaluable. He explained the workings to Emily, making sure she understood the gravity of their actions. As night fell, the forest grew eerily quiet. The teams split up, each moving with stealth and precision. Alex, Emily, Greg, and a few others crept toward the facility, staying low and silent. The other team moved in the opposite direction, carrying their diversionary devices. The tension was thick as they approached the facility. It was a stark contrast to the surrounding wilderness. Cold, metallic, and foreboding. Guard towers loomed overhead, their searchlights sweeping the perimeter. Alex signaled for them to stop. "Wait for the signal," he whispered. They huddled in the shadows, nerves taut as bowstrings. Minutes felt like hours. Then, a series of explosions shattered the silence, followed by blinding flashes of light and deafening booms. The guards reacted instantly, scrambling toward the source of the disturbance. "Now," Greg hissed, and they moved swiftly, slipping through the perimeter and into the heart of the facility. Inside, the air was cooler, the walls lined with technology that seemed out of place in the post-apocalyptic world. They moved through the corridors, their footsteps muffled by the thick concrete floors. Alex's heart pounded as they encountered locked doors and secured rooms. Greg led them to a control room, the walls lined with monitors and servers. "This is it," he said, urgency in his voice. "Alex, see if you can access the data. We need proof." Alex nodded and set to work, his fingers flying over the keyboard. The system was complex, but he managed to bypass the initial security. Files began to download, their contents revealing horrifying details. Experiments on survivors, attempts to create super soldiers, and plans for expanding Marcus's control. "Got it," Alex said, transferring the files to a portable drive. "We need to get out of here." As they turned to leave, an alarm blared, and the facility's lights turned a harsh red. "They know we're here," Greg shouted. "Move!" They bolted down the corridors, the sound of guards closing in behind them. They reached the exit just as the first shots rang out. Greg covered their retreat, firing back at the pursuing guards. "Go!" he yelled, and Alex and Emily sprinted into the night, the rest of the team following close behind. They regrouped at the rendezvous point, breathless but exhilarated. "We did it," Greg said, holding up the drive. "We have the evidence." But the victory was short-lived. The sounds of pursuit were growing louder. They couldn't stay here. "We need to keep moving," Alex urged. "Find a safe place to review this and plan our next steps." The group pressed on, their determination fueled by the knowledge of what they had uncovered. The journey ahead was fraught with danger, but they had taken a crucial step toward exposing Marcus's plans. As they disappeared into the forest, Alex felt a surge of hope. They were no longer just survivors. They were fighters, armed with the truth and ready to reclaim their future. Together, the moon hung high in the sky, casting an ethereal glow on the forest as Alex and his group moved swiftly through the underbrush. The evidence they had gathered was their weapon against Marcus, but they needed to get it to a safe location. The urgency of their mission crackled in the air, pushing them forward despite their exhaustion. They reached a clearing where they had stashed extra supplies. Greg signaled for a break, and the group huddled together to catch their breath and strategize. "We need to get this data to the resistance leaders," Greg said, holding up the portable drive. "They're hiding in a bunker about 10 miles from here. It's heavily fortified, but if we can get there, we'll have the manpower to take on Marcus." Alex nodded. "We should split up again. Smaller groups will be harder to track. Emily and I can take the drive and head north. The rest of you create diversions to draw the guards away." Greg considered this for a moment, then agreed. "All right, we'll set up a series of traps and false trails. Keep your comms open and check in every hour. Stay safe." The group divided, each faction taking a portion of the supplies and heading in different directions. Alex and Emily moved north, navigating the dense forest with practiced stealth. Every sound seemed amplified in the silence of the night, keeping them on high alert. After an hour of cautious travel, they came across a narrow ravine. Alex inspected the terrain. "We can use this to our advantage. If we stay low, it'll be harder for them to spot us from a distance." They descended into the ravine, the cool air a stark contrast to the heat of their anxiety. As they moved, Alex's thoughts turned to their mission. "We're so close," he mused. "We just have to make it a little further." Suddenly, the crack of a twig snapped Alex out of his thoughts. He signaled for Emily to stop, his eyes scanning the darkness. The quiet hum of a drone's propellers reached his ears, and he pulled Emily into the shadows of an overhanging rock. A drone passed overhead, its searchlights sweeping the ravine. Alex held his breath, waiting for it to move on. After what felt like an eternity, the drone veered away, continuing its patrol. "We need to move faster," Alex whispered. "They're closing in." They pushed on, the terrain becoming more challenging as they navigated through the ravine. The sound of distant explosions and gunfire echoed through the forest, evidence of their allies' diversions. Alex silently thanked them for buying them time. As dawn approached, they reached the edge of the ravine and began the climb out. The sight of the forest stretching out before them was both daunting and inspiring. They were almost there, But the moment of relief was short-lived. A squad of Marcus's enforcers appeared, blocking their path. The leader, a burly man with a scar running down his cheek, sneered at them. "Thought you could get away, huh? Hand over the drive." Alex's grip tightened on the small device. "We're not giving you anything." The enforcers advanced, weapons drawn. Alex shoved the drive into Emily's hand. "Run. Now." Emily hesitated, but Alex's fierce gaze propelled her into action. She sprinted into the forest, the enforcers splitting up to chase her. Alex lunged at the leader, engaging him in a desperate struggle. The fight was brutal. Alex used every ounce of his strength and skill to fend off the enforcer. They traded blows, the sound of their struggle reverberating through the trees. Alex managed to disarm the man, but another enforcer tackled him from behind. Emily ran through the forest, her heart pounding. She could hear the shouts of the enforcers behind her. She had to get the drive to safety. She darted through the trees, using her smaller size to her advantage. Suddenly, she stumbled into a hidden trap, a pit covered with leaves and branches. She fell hard, the impact knocking the wind out of her. Above, the enforcers peered down, smirking. "Looks like you're out of luck," one of them said, reaching down to grab her. But before he could, a sharp whistle cut through the air. An arrow struck the enforcer, and he collapsed. Greg and his team emerged from the shadows, launching a surprise attack on the enforcers. Greg helped Emily out of the pit. "Are you all right?" Emily nodded, clutching the drive. "We have to help Alex." The team moved quickly, following the sounds of the struggle. They arrived to find Alex on the ground, bloodied but still fighting. Greg and the others engaged the enforcers, creating chaos. Emily rushed to Alex's side. "Hold on, Alex. We're here." With the help of their allies, they overpowered the remaining enforcers. Alex, bruised and exhausted, managed a weak smile. "Took you long enough." Greg grinned. "We got the drive. Let's get out of here." They resumed their journey, supporting Alex as they moved. The resistance bunker was close, and the promise of safety and reinforcements spurred them on. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, they reached the hidden entrance of the bunker. Resistance fighters greeted them, taking the drive and ushering them inside. Alex and Emily, finally safe for the moment, collapsed into chairs, their mission accomplished. "We did it," Alex said, his voice filled with relief. "We're one step closer to stopping Marcus." Emily nodded, her eyes shining with determination. "Together, we can do this." As they settled into the safety of the bunker, Alex knew the battle was far from over. But with the truth on their side and allies at their back, they were ready for whatever came next. Together, the bunker was a hive of activity. Resistance fighters moved with purpose, preparing for the impending battle. Alex and Emily sat in the command center, their wounds being tended to by a medic. The tension in the room was palpable, a mixture of anticipation and dread. "We've got the proof," Alex said, looking at the drive in Greg's hand. "But now we need to use it." Greg nodded, his face grim. "We're going to broadcast it to every surviving settlement. People need to see what Marcus has been doing." Emily leaned forward, her eyes filled with determination. "And then what? What's the plan to take him down?" Greg's gaze hardened. "We hit him where it hurts, his main compound. With the element of surprise and the support of the other factions, we have a chance to bring him down for good." The room erupted into a flurry of planning. Maps were spread out, routes marked, and teams assigned. Alex and Emily were placed with a strike team tasked with breaching the compound's defenses. As preparations continued, the tension grew. Alex checked his gear, feeling the weight of the mission ahead. Emily stood beside him, her face set with determination. "We've come this far," she said quietly. "We can't back down now." Alex nodded, his resolve firm. "We won't." The time for action arrived. The resistance fighters gathered in the main hall, a sense of unity and purpose binding them together. Greg stepped forward, his voice strong. "We fight not just for ourselves, but for everyone Marcus has oppressed. Today we end his reign." A cheer rose from the crowd, and they moved out, each team heading to their assigned positions. Alex and Emily's team moved swiftly through the forest, the moonlight guiding their path. The compound loomed ahead, a fortress of steel and concrete. The first phase of the plan went off without a hitch. Explosions rocked the outer defenses, creating chaos and drawing the guards' attention. Alex and his team slipped through the breach, moving with practiced stealth. The sounds of gunfire and shouts filled the air, a cacophony of battle. Inside the compound, the team encountered fierce resistance. Guards armed to the teeth fought desperately to defend their stronghold. Alex ducked behind a crate, firing at an approaching guard. The man went down, but more took his place. "Keep moving," Greg shouted, leading the charge. They pushed forward, battling their way through the maze of corridors. They reached the control room, the heart of the compound. The door was heavily guarded, but the team fought with everything they had. Alex and Emily took down 2 guards, clearing a path for Greg to plant explosives on the door. "Get back," Greg yelled, and they took cover as the explosives detonated, blowing the door off its hinges. They stormed into the control room, taking out the remaining guards. Marcus stood at the center, his face a mask of fury. "You think you can stop me?" he snarled, drawing a gun. Alex stepped forward, his voice steady. "It's over, Marcus. We've exposed your crimes. The resistance is united against you." Marcus's eyes narrowed, and he fired. Alex dove to the side, returning fire. The room erupted into chaos as bullets flew and fists clashed. Greg tackled Marcus, the 2 men struggling fiercely. Emily moved to the control panel, her hands flying over the keys. "I'm sending the broadcast now." The screens lit up with images and data, exposing Marcus's horrific experiments and plans. Across the compound, guards began to falter, their resolve shaken by the truth. Marcus roared in fury, throwing Greg off and lunging at Emily. Alex intercepted him, their bodies crashing to the ground. They grappled, each fighting with a desperation born of their beliefs. With a final surge of strength, Alex overpowered Marcus, pinning him to the ground. Greg moved in, securing him with restraints. "It's over," Alex said, breathing heavily. "You've lost." The broadcast had the desired effect. Guards surrendered, and the remaining resistance fighters swept through the compound, securing it completely. Cheers erupted as the last of Marcus's enforcers were captured. Alex and Emily stood together, watching as Marcus was led away. The compound, once a symbol of oppression, now belonged to the people. Greg approached them, a tired but triumphant smile on his face. "We did it. It's finally over." Alex shook his head. "It's just the beginning. We have a lot of rebuilding to do." Emily nodded. "But we'll do it. Together." As the sun rose over the horizon, bathing the compound in a new light, Alex felt a sense of hope. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. Now they could begin the long journey of healing and rebuilding. For the first time in a long while, the future looked bright. And with their newfound unity and purpose, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, the aftermath of the battle was both somber and exhilarating. The compound was now under the control of the resistance, but the cost of victory was evident in the tired and injured fighters who moved through the halls. The once sterile corridors now buzzed with activity as the resistance began to establish order and security. Alex and Emily walked through the compound, observing the transformation. The control room, which had been a place of terror and command for Marcus, was now the nerve center for the resistance. Screens displayed maps, communication lines buzzed with updates, and the room was filled with a sense of purpose. Greg stood at the center coordinating efforts. He saw Alex and Emily enter and waved them over. "We've received messages from other settlements," he said. "They're rallying to our cause. Marcus's regime is collapsing." Alex felt a surge of pride. "We did it, but there's still so much to do." Greg nodded. "We need to secure supplies, rebuild, and most importantly, ensure that nothing like this ever happens again." Emily joined the conversation, her face reflecting both exhaustion and determination. We need to start by helping the people who've suffered the most, the ones who were directly affected by Marcus's experiments. Alex agreed. We should set up medical stations, provide food and shelter, and begin the process of restoring some semblance of normalcy. Greg turned to a group of resistance leaders. You heard them. Let's get moving. We've got a lot of work to do. As the leaders dispersed, Alex and Emily made their way to the medical bay. Inside, the scene was chaotic but organized. Medics and volunteers moved swiftly, tending to the wounded and the sick. Alex spotted the medic who had treated them earlier and approached. How can we help? He asked. The medic looked up, relief evident in her eyes. We could use more hands. There are many who need treatment and care. Alex and Emily jumped in, assisting with whatever they could. They cleaned wounds, distributed food and water, and offered words of comfort to those who were struggling. The hours passed in a blur of activity, but the sense of accomplishment was palpable. Later that evening, the resistance held a meeting in the main hall. The room was packed with fighters, leaders, and survivors. Greg stood at the front, addressing the crowd. We've won a significant battle, but the war isn't over, he said. We need to rebuild, to create a society based on trust, equality, and justice. Marcus's reign of terror has ended, but our work has just begun. The crowd erupted into cheers and applause. Alex felt a hand on his shoulder and turned to see Emily smiling at him. We've come so far, she said, but there's still so much to do. Alex nodded. And we'll do it. Together. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. The resistance worked tirelessly to stabilize the region. They sent out teams to neighboring settlements, spreading the news of their victory and rallying support. The once oppressive compound was transformed into a beacon of hope. One afternoon, Alex and Emily took a moment to themselves. They stood on a hill overlooking the compound, the landscape bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. The air was crisp and clean, a stark contrast to the darkness they had endured. It's beautiful, Emily said, her voice filled with awe. Alex wrapped an arm around her shoulders. It is, and it's just the beginning. We have the chance to create something better, something lasting. Emily leaned into him, drawing strength from his presence. We'll make it happen. We've already shown what we can do when we work together. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the land, Alex felt a profound sense of peace. They had fought, they had struggled, and they had won. The future was uncertain, but it was theirs to shape. We'll build a new world, Alex said softly. One where people can live without fear, where they can dream and hope and thrive. Emily nodded, her eyes reflecting the determination that had carried them this far. Together, they stood there for a while longer, drawing strength from the beauty around them and the bond they shared. The challenges ahead were immense, but they faced them with hope and resilience. As night fell, Alex and Emily returned to the compound, ready to continue their work. The fight for a better world was far from over, but they were ready for whatever came next. Together, the following weeks were a blur of intense activity. The resistance, now bolstered by the fall of Marcus's regime, worked tirelessly to secure their newfound freedom. Messages poured in from settlements far and wide, each one adding to the growing network of communities determined to rebuild. Alex and Emily threw themselves into the effort. Their days were filled with planning, coordinating, and aiding the injured. The compound had become a beacon of hope, attracting survivors and fighters eager to contribute to the cause. It was during one of these busy afternoons that a message arrived, bringing with it a glimmer of personal hope. Greg approached Alex and Emily as they worked in the medical bay. We've received a message from a nearby settlement, he said, his voice serious but tinged with excitement. They found 2 people who claimed to know you. Alex's heart skipped a beat. Who? Greg handed over a crumpled piece of paper. A man and a woman. They described you both in detail. It could be your parents. Emily gasped, her eyes filling with hope. Where are they? About 2 days' journey from here, Greg replied. We can send a team to bring them back. Alex and Emily exchanged a glance filled with unspoken emotions. "We'll go," Alex said firmly. "We need to see if it's really them." Greg nodded. "I'll arrange for transport and a small escort. Be ready to leave at first light." The next morning, Alex and Emily set out with a small group of resistance fighters. The journey was fraught with challenges, the terrain rough and the weather unpredictable, but their determination drove them forward. 2 days later, they arrived at the settlement. It was a modest community, but the people there were resilient and welcoming. The leader, a woman named Clara, greeted them warmly. "We've been expecting you," she said, leading them to a small house on the edge of the settlement. Alex and Emily's hearts pounded as they approached. Clara opened the door and motioned for them to enter. Inside, 2 figures stood, their faces lined with worry and fatigue. But as soon as they saw Alex and Emily, their expressions transformed into ones of joy and disbelief. "Mom! Dad!" Emily cried, rushing forward. The reunion was a whirlwind of tears and embraces. Alex hugged his parents tightly, feeling a profound sense of relief and gratitude. "We thought we'd lost you," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "We've been searching for you," his father replied, his voice thick with emotion. "When we heard about the resistance and what you'd done, we knew we had to find you." Emily's mother cupped her face, her eyes filled with tears. "You've grown so much. We're so proud of you both." The family spent hours catching up, sharing stories of survival and resilience. Alex and Emily learned that their parents had been part of a small group fighting against Marcus's forces and had been captured but later escaped. The news of Marcus's fall had given them the courage to seek out the resistance. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the settlement, Alex and Emily knew that their fight had taken on a new meaning. They had found their family, but the struggle to rebuild and protect their world was far from over. That evening, Clara hosted a gathering in honor of the reunion. The community came together, sharing food and stories under the starlit sky. There was a sense of unity and hope that had been absent for so long. Greg, who had accompanied them, stood to address the crowd. "This reunion is a testament to our strength and resilience. We have faced darkness and emerged victorious, but we must continue to fight for a better future." Alex stood beside him, holding Emily's hand. "We've seen what we can achieve when we stand together. Our fight isn't just about survival. It's about creating a world where we can thrive." The crowd erupted into applause, the energy palpable. Alex looked at his parents, then at Emily, feeling a profound sense of purpose. They had come so far, but their journey was just beginning. As the night wore on, the sounds of laughter and music filled the air. Alex and Emily sat with their parents, surrounded by their new extended family. There was much work to be done, but for the first time in a long while, the future seemed bright. "We'll build a new world," Alex said softly, echoing his earlier sentiments. "One where people can live without fear, where they can dream and hope and thrive." Emily nodded, her eyes reflecting the determination that had carried them this far. Together, they sat there, drawing strength from each other and the community around them. The challenges ahead were immense, but they faced them with hope and resilience. As the firelight flickered and the stars shone above, Alex knew that they were ready for whatever came next. Together, they would rebuild and create a world worthy of their sacrifices and dreams. The days that followed were a whirlwind of progress and renewal. The reunion with their parents had not only rejuvenated Alex and Emily, but had also reinvigorated the entire resistance movement. Word of their success spread quickly, bringing hope and courage to settlements that had long been oppressed under Marcus's regime. Alex and Emily worked tirelessly, alongside their parents and other resistance members, to turn the former compound into a hub for rebuilding and outreach. Medical stations were set up, food supplies distributed, and communication lines established to connect with more distant settlements. One morning, Alex stood in the bustling courtyard of the compound, watching as people moved with purpose and energy. Greg approached, a satisfied smile on his face. "We're getting reports from all over. People are rising up. Marcus's remaining forces are retreating." Alex nodded, his thoughts a mix of relief and anticipation. We've come a long way, but we need to ensure this peace lasts. We need to build something that can withstand future threats. Greg agreed. We should establish a council, a body of representatives from all the settlements. They can help govern and make decisions that benefit everyone. Emily joined them, having just finished helping distribute medical supplies. That's a great idea. It will give everyone a voice and help maintain unity. The idea of a council quickly took root. Representatives from various settlements began to arrive, each bringing their own experiences and hopes for the future. The compound buzzed with discussions and debates, as old wounds were aired and new alliances formed. During one of the council meetings, Alex and Emily's parents stood to speak. Their mother, with her nurturing yet firm demeanor, addressed the crowd. We've all suffered under tyranny. Now we have a chance to build a world based on trust and cooperation. Let's not waste it. Their father added, we need to focus on education, on teaching the next generation the values of freedom and respect. That's how we ensure that our sacrifices weren't in vain. The council meetings were intense but productive. Policies were drafted, resources allocated, and plans made for the future. Alex and Emily often found themselves at the center of these discussions, their experiences and leadership guiding many decisions. One evening, after a particularly long day of meetings, Alex and Emily walked through the compound, taking in the transformations around them. The once sterile halls were now filled with laughter and conversation. Children played, their carefree giggles a stark contrast to the somber silence that had once filled the space. As they passed a newly planted garden, Alex paused, his gaze lingering on the vibrant green shoots pushing through the soil. This place was once a symbol of fear and control. Now, it's a symbol of hope and renewal. Emily smiled, linking her arm with his. We did this, all of us, together. They continued their walk, eventually reaching the edge of the compound where a large construction project was underway. Teams of volunteers were building new homes and facilities, their efforts a testament to the collective spirit that had taken hold. Greg joined them, wiping sweat from his brow. We're making good progress. At this rate, we'll have enough housing for everyone before winter. Alex clapped him on the back. You've done an incredible job organizing this. We couldn't have done it without you. Greg grinned. We all played our part. Speaking of which, there's something I want to show you. He led them to a quiet corner of the compound where a small memorial was being constructed. It featured plaques with the names of those who had lost their lives in the struggle against Marcus's tyranny. In the center, a large stone bore an inscription, "In memory of the brave, who fought for freedom and a brighter tomorrow." Emily's eyes filled with tears as she read the inscription. It's perfect. They deserve to be remembered. Alex nodded, his voice thick with emotion. Their sacrifice wasn't in vain. We'll make sure of it. As night fell, the compound settled into a peaceful rhythm. The sounds of construction quieted, replaced by the soft murmur of conversation and the distant notes of a song being played on a guitar. The stars shone brightly overhead, a reminder of the vast, beautiful world they were working to rebuild. Alex and Emily found a quiet spot under a large oak tree, its branches swaying gently in the night breeze. They sat together, drawing strength from each other's presence. We've done so much, Alex said, his voice filled with wonder. And there's still so much more to do. Emily leaned her head on his shoulder. But we'll do it, one step at a time, together. As they sat there, looking out over the transformed compound, Alex felt a deep sense of peace. They had faced unimaginable challenges and emerged stronger. The future was bright, filled with possibilities. We'll build a new world, he said softly, echoing their shared promise. One where people can live without fear, where they can dream and hope and thrive. Emily nodded, her eyes reflecting the determination that had carried them this far. Together, the night wrapped around them like a comforting blanket, the stars bearing silent witness to their journey and the promise of a better tomorrow. Alex knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them with courage and resilience. Together, They would rebuild and create a world worthy of their sacrifices and dreams. Did you find the golden star in the video? If you did, leave a comment with the time you saw it to be mentioned in our next video. Thanks for spending a moment of your day with me. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps a lot. If you don't, well, I'll still love you. Thanks for stopping by.